起13年前发生的少女失踪悬案告破，警方逮捕。
We were just really shocked to hear that she had gone missing the next day because we had just spoken to each other.
The police came, called my client up for investigation, and this time my client was very forthcoming. He admitted to the police that he had disposed of her body.
35岁男子今天下午被控上法庭，警方相信这名男子和他的朋友当年一起干案之后弃尸。
Even after we managed to have the case open up, they don't have enough evidence to actually charge them.
那么这个案件来说呢，证据是有点薄弱。
Burdens of proof. This is the burden that the prosecution must surpass in order to sustain a conviction.
任何的案件若要水落石出，证据必须确凿。但是，如果证据被蓄意毁灭或是伪造，那正义该如何伸张？
The case is interesting because right now my client is a free man.
2010年，榜额24乡道进行一项挖掘工程，谁也没有想到，一项普通的挖掘工程，挖出了一小片的人的头骨。那么由这个头骨呢，竟然是揭发了一起曲折离奇、扑朔迷离的奇案。案件还得从2007年开始说起。
2007年6月29日，一名19岁女学生一夜未归，音讯全无。焦虑的家人向警方报案，说她离奇的失踪了。
我叫何英，我是在1970年进报馆的。前后做了42年的新闻工作。在新加坡来讲，因为失踪而造成严重的罪案的发生，整体上来说不多了。我记得麦当劳学童失踪案，2个12岁的小学生失踪30多年了。70年代还是80年代，有发生过另外一宗蛮严重的案件。就是有5个陪游女郎集体失踪，有这样的事情发生，不过是很少，不足以说震撼整个社会了。除了这个佛利山张伟玲的案件，
当时的这名失踪少女张伟玲是本地一所艺术学院的学生。认识张伟玲的其中一名同学说道：“她非常独立，平时也很照顾朋友。”
Felicia and I, we go way back to secondary school. We attended the same secondary school with each other, and we were also in the same CCA. After we graduated from secondary school, both of us also ended up in LaSalle doing arts. Yeah. You see her around in school, and she's always got a very cheerful vibe. She's always very friendly. She's the friendliest girl, you know. Always had this huge smile. I just knew that she was a very creative person, and I felt that she was happy doing what she was doing at that point. Yeah.
当时张伟玲，她跟家里的人说，她要出去一个舞会。
It was a big party, you know. It was a really big party. There were lots of kids. You know, these were kids who were currently studying in LaSalle. These were kids who are graduating from LaSalle and kids who had graduated from LaSalle.
这名和张伟玲认识多年的朋友声称，当天晚会是他最后一次见到张伟玲，而他最后身影让他永远无法忘怀。
We just spoken to each other at the party, just really briefly, and she said that she was gonna head off soon. I just told her that see her around.
那场晚会过后，张伟玲像是人间蒸发。他的另一位朋友曾在社交媒体提到，张伟玲原本准备出席他的婚礼，婚礼的前一天，他们还通过电话，不料这竟然成为他们最后的谈话。张伟玲销声匿迹，家人和朋友都陷入了焦灼之中。
And I was just really, really shocked to hear that she had gone missing the next day because we had just spoken to each other. Sorry.
他的妈妈在3天后去报警，那警方当初是把它当作人口失踪案来处理。
警方每天都必须处理一定数量的失踪案，很多涉及成年人的案件，其实大多数会自行解决，无需进一步采取行动。所以张伟玲的失踪案刚开始时看起来平平无奇。
警方透露过一些数字，一天平均有5个人失踪。那么这个所谓失踪这个字眼我们要换成不同的角度来看。你看那个数字，为什么一直这么多？我相信最主要的一个原因是什么？不见了，他的家里人去报案，回来了呢，他没有去销案，所以你变成说那个数据还在那边呢，它不能够反映失踪的真正情况。
那最后见到张伟玲的人又是谁呢？有目击者透露，在离开派对后，张伟玲和2名男性朋友出去玩。
警方是后来发现了，当时跟张伟玲一起出门的2个男子是这个案件的重要嫌犯。他们3个人去这个男子的家，就在 Marine Parade。
警方经过调查，在电眼记录中发现，张伟玲最后出现在马林台第19座的祖屋电梯内。当天，他与2名男性友人丹尼尔和拉吉尔一同进入了电梯，不过电眼却没有拍到他离开。警方盘问2名年轻男子时，他们坚称张伟玲在凌晨时分已经独自离开。警方在涉事单位进行了搜查，也调阅了附近的监视器，都没有获取2人涉及犯罪的证据。最后，调查人员将此案列为失踪案处理。直到2020年，因为掌握了关键的新证据，所以特别罪案调查组重启了这宗冷案，并逮捕了丹尼尔。
35岁男子今天下午被控上法庭，警方相信这名男子和他的朋友当年一起干案之后弃尸，少女应该已经遇害。
I first heard the news that they arrested Daniel and that there were 2 male suspects involved with Felicia's case.
丹尼尔是张伟玲在拉萨尔艺术学院的同学，他朋友甚多，热爱摄影，还在一次摄影比赛节目当中赢得亚军。而另一名涉案男子拉吉尔来自印尼，事发时在新加坡念书，马林台的事发单位就是他的住所。拉吉尔至今依然逍遥法外，警方仍在寻找他协助调查。
I was really pissed off, you know, I was really, truly pissed off. Can't imagine how this must have felt for her family and her friends, yeah.
在这起扑朔迷离的案件，是什么至关重要的证据使得案子取得突破？
He goes, do you know where she is, right?
2007年，19岁的张伟玲在一个派对结束后就再也没有出现了。最后一次见到他的2名男同学声称，他在凌晨2点多已经擅自离开。张伟玲失踪多天，没有任何线索，家人和亲友决定寻求帮助。
所以我们也要知道，在现场看我们要怎么样找证据啊。
张伟玲的家人联系上了罪案图书馆创办人陈近南，来协助他们的搜索。
When I received the call, my feeling was okay. It's a teenager that went missing. And because at that time we have this MRT project doing this missing poster to find missing persons. So we responded with yes. When Felicia's parents stepped in the door of our office, my impression was the facial expression. You can see the anxiety, you can see, that they have gone through a very tiring search. Because we do this for a long time, you can see that this is just not a normal case. This is going to be a very serious matter.
Hello， 你好，我想问一下哈，你是这里已经住在这边很久的吗？还是？
我的名字叫美玲，我是罪案图书馆的媒体播报员，工作呢就是帮助我们的罪案图书馆的那些寻求家属、那些冷案，还有就是那些失踪者的家属，帮忙呼吁啦，帮他们找他们那些失去的那些家人。通常呢，我们的罪案防疫之旅呢，我们都会到失踪家属的家去探访。如果呢这个案子到现在呢都没有任何的线索来关闭的话呢，他们都会造成家属的一些创伤。
So at the time, when his daughter came,
我当然知道有听过 Felicia Teo 的这个故事，那时还是闹得风风雨雨了。
这里挖到，因为是以前呢，这边呢他们
很多人一直在问关于 Felicia Teo 的事情有没有任何的进展，有没有任何新的线索还是什么的。
2007年9月，在张伟玲家人的请求下，罪案图书馆展开了一次全岛性的寻人活动。张伟玲的朋友也设立了一个寻人网站，请求公众提供任何跟伟玲有关的信息。
On behalf of the Teo family, you can also log on to this website, findfelicia.blogspot.com.
So please keep your eyes peeled for her, and let's bring her home soon.
It was funny. It's like, when someone goes missing, there's all this hype at the start of it, and then it kind of like dwindles down as time went by, and there was no news or updates of Felicia being found. It just felt like she just kind of like faded away.
在公众眼里，也许张伟玲的案件渐渐地被遗忘，但她的家人朋友们却从没放弃希望。
We got our first breakthrough. That is, the family members managed to get CCTV footage of Felicia Teo and the two suspects went to a lift together, and they got out at the destination. Throughout the whole day, there is no further footage of Felicia Teo took the lift down. So that shows that Felicia Teo was the last person to be with the two male suspects. Because of this footage, that actually ignite the investigation.
这段监控录像足以使警方将2名嫌犯传召问话。他们也证实，张伟玲失踪当晚确实去过拉吉尔的祖屋单位。 但是2名嫌犯坚称，他在凌晨2点前就已经离开了。
Even after we managed to have the case open up, the CID came back after their investigation with the 2 suspects. They told them that they don't have enough evidence to actually charge them.
最有可能揭露张伟玲下落的线索落空了，而在那时候，另一个新线索却突然出现，也仿佛印证了嫌犯的供词。有路人在东海岸公园发现了一个被遗弃的手机，之后证实是属于张伟玲的，其中最后发出的短信是在凌晨2点37分。
I felt very, very suspicious and fishy. Reason because handphone is something very personal. It's like today, you can't live without it if you like. And moreover, it's a Nokia expensive phone was bought by the mother. We are talking about, if I can remember, like nearly $1,000 for the phone.
虽然存有漏洞，这手机物证的存在其实对嫌犯有利。凌晨2点后所发出的短信，也似乎印证了失踪者在离开拉吉尔的住家后还安然无恙。因为这个证据，调查方向改变了。
Because the last coordinates were there at East Coast. It's only let the police check it out and say that, is there any dead body around there? But true enough, there's no body found and all that.
I'm Dr. Paul Chui. I'm from the Forensic Medicine Division of the Health Sciences Authority. I'm a senior consultant, forensic pathologist. There is some element of truth in collecting as much evidence as you can within the first few hours of arriving at the crime scene or looking at the body. But there is a caveat. Our resources are not unlimited. You have to make decisions as to how much you want to collect. How are you going to preserve? How are you going to retain this? Knowing that evidence is also going to deteriorate over time, that takes a lot of judgment.
在毫无具体证据的情况下，案子似乎又到了一个死角。
The investigations went cold for many years. Many years later and closer to 2020, the police got new leads.
虽然时过13年，但是警方一直关注这起冷案。在新颖的办案科技协助下，调查人员发现了张伟玲遗失已久的笔记型电脑，居然在嫌犯丹尼尔的手里。
The police came, called my client up for investigation, and this time my client was very forthcoming. He admitted to the police that he had disposed of her body. He brought the police to various locations where he thought the body was, but the police couldn't find the body.
除了弃尸，丹尼尔也承认是他把张伟玲的手机遗留在东海岸公园，目的是伪造证据，误导调查人员，来摆脱自己的嫌疑。
伪造不在现场的证据，因为他们在抛尸的时候，把张伟玲的手机也带走。带去这个东海岸公园，用这个 GPS 就是定位的这个功能啊，表示说这个张伟玲啊有来过东海岸公园。伪造证据在这个刑事案里面是常见的，这个主要是犯罪者要转移警方的这个调查的方向。就是我们有一句话就是说声东击西啊。
虽然丹尼尔承认弃尸、制造伪证、挪用失踪者财物等6项控状，但是由于张伟玲的尸体始终没有被破获，所以无法证明是他杀。在法律面前，每一个人在被证明有罪之前，都被推定是无辜的。但是如果有人遇害，而尸首、凶器都齐全，那证据是否就真实可信？过往的案件是否能提供新的视角，为张伟玲的案件指引明路呢？ 红帽桥食道是个新加坡典型的祖屋区，但平静的生活在2006年被划破。这里竟然发生了一起震撼全国的激情命案。案件与张伟玲的命案有一个相似之处，那就是被告人都不承认犯下谋杀罪。两起案件的控方因此都必须提供超出合理怀疑的证据。
A woman was found murdered in a shop at Ang Mo Kio Avenue 10 this morning. Residents say they found the body of the Chinese national in a salon at Block 416. A man in his 50s was also found lying on the floor with injuries to his body. He was said to...
死者小红于红金是尤林福来他的 lover， 为什么他会要 murder his own lover？ 那个故事每个人都想知道。我是陈伟玲副教授，我是新加坡国立大学发生科学系的主任。尤林福来这件案子，我是其中的一个主控官。
我的名是苏尼尔，我是个刑事律师。Yulim Hock Lai story was at that time, well, to the best of my memory, there was a bad breakup. The victim was angry and started stabbing him, and then he wanted to stop her stabbing him. So he started strangling her to stop her, and that resulted in her death.
那为什么小红会这么生气？你知道我们在英文讲 Why do you kill the goose that lay the golden eggs？ 他就是给他钱的，他为什么小红要把他杀了呢？
Yulim Hock Lai's case was unique because he was charged in Tan Tock Seng's prison ward. Remember, he was stabbed, right? We attended a court hearing in the prison ward with a judge there and a prosecutor there, where he was charged with murder.
这起激情案发生在张伟玲失踪案的前一年。失踪案证据不足，但是这起凶杀案却看似证据充足。案发现场是间按摩院，调查人员紧锣密鼓地搜集了围绕此案的线索。
This was a case where the accused person managed to reach out to his daughter, and it was, according to him, was in the thick of the action. And his daughter called for the police, and the police arrived within an hour. They found the deceased dead on the massage table. They found the accused person already slumped down on the floor, unconscious, and they even had a murder weapon.
虽然死者、嫌犯、凶器三者尽据案发现场，法庭审讯却意外的复杂。控辩律师对证据解读各异，使得局势错综复杂。
Murder cases, your first level is any psychiatric defense or not. If psychiatric defenses are ruled out, then you go into your other defenses. Most times it is grave and sudden provocation or sudden fight, altercation between individuals resulting in a death caused. So if you succeed there, you can get murder reduced to culpable homicide not amounting to murder.
我是张俊明，我是新加坡国立大学法律系的副教授。从事副教授的这个职位之前呢，我已经处理刑事案子大概有12年的经验了。Culpable homicide， 它是在谋杀的这个罪行低一点点。通常法庭或者主控官会觉得一个案子会是 culpable homicide， 是因为有一些特殊的情况导致这个谋杀的罪行可以比较轻一点。
在这案件中，被告的命运取决于一个主要的疑点：他是否与受害者发生争执，不慎导致他人身亡，还是涉及了有预谋的杀害。
When the police entered the massage room, they found the victim lying across in this manner, with the head at this side. The victim was holding the knife in her hands, and the suspect is seated at the corner on the floor. So according to the accused, the victim was behind him, stabbing him from the back. If this really took place, you will be expecting cut marks at the front part of his shirt. However, this is not the case, which raises suspicion to the accuracy of his statement.
The incident, according to what my client said, took place was she got a knife and stabbed him first. There was a struggle that ensued. She got stabbed in return.
The surprising thing was, it was a very clean crime scene. If the accused, according to his version, had put up a fight, there would have been blood spatter that's on the floor.
To me, it seemed congruent with the struggle that took place. The accused person, I think, he held her against the massage bed and he started strangling her to stop her from the stabbing actions and so on and so forth.
So this way, and she was holding the knife in her hands. And there were 2 stab wounds here, 400 cc of blood right over here. 小红的肚子刺了2刀，损害到里面的 internal organs injury， 好多的血在里面。为什么？因为内伤嘛。这个告诉我们什么？他就是躺着不动。他最后那2刀是在他的 massage table， 他就是在最后的那个 position， 所以他的肚子里面的血也没有流出来。So the blood should have flowed down, right? If you stand up and you have 400 cc of blood, or you whatever blood, the blood will have flowed down. But there was no vertical blood stains at all.
To our perspective, it wasn't that material. Ultimately, for us, it came down to whether the injuries on Yew Lim Hock Lai were self-inflicted or not. Burdens of proof. This is the burden that the prosecution must surpass in order to sustain a conviction.
Burden of proof 永远都是在主控方那一方来成立这个控状的，所以在刑事案子里面呢，法庭就会考虑谁能够提出比较确实的证据。这合理的想法的这个基础一定要是确实的这个证据。
主控官要控那个犯人要定罪的话，是一个很高的一个 burden。那为什么呢？因为人命关天嘛，就是说 you need to discharge the burden of proving the charge beyond a reasonable doubt.
Now, there's the next level of burden, which is called balance of probabilities. That means of a variety of possibilities, this must be a probability that is, if you would, more than 50% chance of happening. Necessitates support by the evidence to a strong level.
The judge asked for the massage parlor to be built. The accused was giving his version. 他就在法庭上就释放那天发生了什么事，很多东西都不符合。他说小红从他的背后刺了几刀，他就转过来，他有挣扎，他就说他就捏了他，然后就很不小心的有可能就刺到他。
HSA Scene Reconstruction Department recreated the scene and suggested in the end that it was self-inflicted injuries, which we strongly disagreed with, of course.
How come he had 9 stab wounds on his abdomen? And these 9 stab wounds were very unusual. If you imagine that there was a fight, that could be slash wounds, stab wounds, haphazard wounds. But in this case, they were clustered 5 and 4 on both sides.
The question is, are there any hesitation marks? Okay, so sometimes there may be shallow wounds or, little nicks because you need, the courage to stab yourself. That didn't seem to be apparent. And then we applied for time to go and get our own expert.
And I had the privilege to cross-examine Professor Duflo. He's a forensic pathologist in Australia, and he came up with a different version as compared to our forensic scientists.
So Duflo was saying, look, some of the wounds are quite deep, but it can be deep and still miss the organs. The knife has to go a certain depth. And if you're self-inflicting, you won't self-inflict to this kind of depth.
It was reasonable. He didn't speculate. There was no conjecture. We should let the evidence speak for itself.
在这个特殊案例中，虽然物证齐全，但在对证据进行更仔细的审议后，上诉法院审定被告因过失而导致他人死亡，从而免判他死刑。
I think the Singaporean courts in capital cases leave no stone unturned. They will explore everything which is raised. Two equally plausible explanations. Beyond a reasonable doubt means you take the one in favor of the accused. Because you don't want wrongful convictions. That's the most painful thing in our justice system, a wrongful conviction.
总的来说呢，如果我们看 Felicia Teo 的案子和 Yuling Hotline 的案子呢，两个不同的这个考量，就是在 Felicia Teo 的情况下，还没有足够的证据和调查来成立到底是什么事情导致他的身亡。Yuling Hotline 的这个案子呢，调查已经完成了，证据也已经呈现在法庭当中。法庭要决定的就是要接受主控官提出的这个情况 A， 还是辩方所提出的这个情况 B。这两个案子的不同就是在于这一点了。
在2007年的张伟玲失踪案中，有证据显示他最后与2名嫌疑人一起出现，但这些线索并不足以对他们提起诉讼。然而，几年后一个意外发现将会推动案件进一步的发展。
在2010年，在 Punggol Track 24有一个头颅碎骨被发现。
发现头额骨的地点，也是10年后丹尼尔承认弃尸的地点。那么，这个头额骨是否就属于张伟玲？2010年，新加坡的 DNA 鉴定技术处于萌芽阶段，但近几年技术有了新的发展和突破，张伟玲的案件调查被重启。
如果要取出，或者是要确定这个头颅是不是 Felicia Teo 的，那么我们其实可以鉴定，用了 mitochondrial DNA 的 testing 方法来 analyze 这个头颅。
线粒体其实是 they are the powerhouses of the cell， 那个细胞能源就是从线粒体来的。And the next step will be using the heat block. We will have to incubate this when 怎么他们可以辨认到是 Felicia 的头颅骨，是因为它的线粒体 DNA 跟它的母亲的那边，我们叫做 maternal lineage， 全部的母亲那边是一样的，因为我们的线粒体 DNA 是从母亲传下来，一代传一代，所以这样就可以匹配到，就知道是谁的头颅骨。
证实了头颅骨碎片属于张伟玲，警方正式起诉当年的2名嫌疑犯丹尼尔和拉吉尔。
The police restarted the investigations. They called in my client. They charged him for the murder of Felicia Teo. The case is interesting because right now my client is a free man.
Wake up, Sleeping Beauty. Come on. Hello. Still sleeping, oi. Not waking up. Hey, wake up. Really not waking up, huh? She's not breathing already.
My client got his version of the events, and he told me right from the very beginning that he and the co-accused, they did not kill Felicia. They had no reason to kill Felicia. She was her friend. They had gone to a party, they had drunk lots of alcohol, and eventually they also consumed some illicit substances. In the morning when they woke up, she didn't wake up.
会不会是因为这个毒品的这个药性发作，或者服了过多的这个药物，导致他死亡？到目前还是一个谜。
I felt that a lot of things, is unbelievable lah. If what he said was true, he could have come clean in the first place, and life could move on, especially for the family members. You could add in more to say that she's on drug overdose. I mean, on behalf of my help seekers, we couldn't actually accept that.
They were young men at that time. When they found that she had passed on, what they should have done was just call for the ambulance or call for the police. And that would be the end of it. But of course, at that time they were worried if the police came, it would be shown that they had consumed drugs, and they were worried that they would go to jail for drugs.
张伟玲是意外身亡还是被谋杀，至今无法确认。唯有的证词便是其中一名被告所承认的罪行。丹尼尔声称，两人将张伟玲的尸体藏入一个纸箱后，把箱子封了，然后拖着纸箱乘搭德士到榜额24道弃尸。
Of course, with hindsight, you know how silly that was, but they decided at the time to just dispose of the body. They brought the body to a location, buried it, and then they disposed of items. The police did interview them at the time of Felicia's disappearance, but of course they didn't talk about disposing of the body.
Was she killed? Was she poisoned? Did she die from overdose? No one knows for sure because her body is not found. In fact, the investigations revealed that the perpetrators placed her body into the hole and they burned her body with kerosene. This is literally a case that evidence has been destroyed.
以这样的手法隐藏与销毁证据，也是专家对被告行为背后的动机产生不同意见。
Concealment is what steps offenders take after they commit an offense. Do they, in fact, try to conceal the evidence? Do they destroy evidence in the room, and do they run away from the place? Concealment shows elements of planning and premeditation. It also shows a nimble mind trying to evade the long arm of the law.
The argument is lack of remorse, and because he didn't come clean, it's very difficult for the family to get closure. And these are factors which I think are fairly put on the table by the prosecution. However, you have to balance that with the age when this was initially happening. He was a young boy, he's in his 30s now. Everyone has a sense of self-preservation. That's a human response. There is evidence that she's no longer alive. There's evidence her body's been disposed. But to show murder, where the death penalty is the punishment, I don't think there's enough evidence.
Some things you cannot go back and get. The longer the period of time that's lapsed, the harder it gets to solve the case. If the case has been already 20 years old, we wouldn't have had that technology at that point in time to capture that information. But if you had, let's say, a piece of evidence that was there, with newer technology comes along and you can go back and revisit that piece of evidence and retest it. And that you may recover more information to give you better leads going forward.
Ahmad Daniel Muhammad Rafai, who was originally charged with the murder of 19-year-old Felicia Teo, was today sentenced to 26 months jail for lesser charges.
In the end, my client was punished for the offences that he admitted to, the disposing of the body, the lying to the police, the disposing of evidence. If subsequently new evidence comes out, we'll have to deal with that at that time.
在2022年6月27日，37岁的丹尼尔被判无事醒事，他的代表律师申请上诉，要求判他无罪。若是被判无罪，他就不会再度因为同一项罪名被起诉。
一般人会有一些疑问，就是说这个 Daniel 为什么没有面对这个死刑的审讯啊？如果要无尸定罪啊，都需要有很多证据啊。现场的一草一木、一土一事、蛛丝马迹都可以成为这个环境证据。那么这个案件来说呢，证据是有点薄弱，就是对司法界跟执法人员呢，是一个很大的挑战。
When it's a discharge not amounting to acquittal, it means to say it's not acquittal.
无事审系啊，并不代表无罪。啊，警方如果今后啊有找到新的证据，是有权再度控他谋杀。
So the court that's now still have public interest in this case. They want to pursue the truth, and there's another person at large now, the accomplice at large, right? If he comes in, then he will be able to give a fuller version of the event of the story as to what happened.
他会不知道主控官在什么时候会恢复这个控状，因为这个决定是完全在于主控官的这个管辖当中的。完全是他们的权利，所以有可能是10年、20年，甚至30年，或者甚至那个人身亡之后呢，主控官也可能不会恢复那个控状。
I'm in no way trivializing what happened to Felicia and her family. It must have been terrible for her family, her mother who lost a child at a young age. Nothing I can say or my client will ever say will ever bring her back or ease the pain. I'm sure Felicia's family would have suffered a lot. And I'm sorry for that. But that doesn't mean I can ignore my duty to do what I can for my client. And if he did not kill her, he shouldn't hang for this.
与此同时，在为此案再度审判的过程中，张伟玲的亲友又深深地触动了曾经的创伤。
It just felt like it was a fresh wound all over again. And even though she had been gone for a long time, it just felt like it just brought back too much. Everything just, it was like an open wound again, yeah. Is there any justice that's going to be done for Felicia? You know, I mean, for Felicia and her family, for all these years of silence and hiding the truth. I just feel like there's no justice done for her. I was hopeful for a long time, and that hope carried on into the years. Maybe to a certain extent, I did hope that she did run away, because if not, then what would the other alternative be?
正义能否伸张，靠的是人证物证。然而，物证要是遭到扭曲或破坏，那就会显现出真相有多脆弱。若要让一切水落石出，就得要仰赖执法人员不懈的坚持了。
一个罪案的发生，事实就是事实，真相是怎么样，那个是另外一回事情。真相，是留待警方跟法庭去查。
What the Lady Justice is doing is that she's weighing each and every single piece of evidence and let these evidence be tried in court, and so that at the end of the day, the judge who listens to all the evidence will be able to make a decision on whether he's guilty or he's not guilty.
你可以通过 Millicent 应用程序、Spotify 或 Apple Podcast 收听更多真实奇案。